DA, why don't you take us off with episode number 2 of ProPod Ponderings?
Yeah, let's go. So this is the Protagonist podcast, ProPod Ponderings. This is our second one, and we love this just like quick little back and forth of sharing our takes and then getting feedback from other protagonists and just hearing response, generating some conversation that we feel like is helpful. I share a topic, Grant shares a topic, and then we just kind of go from there. We'll probably ask a follow-up question. So that's just the framework, just to let you guys know if you want to jump out or if you want to continue to watch. So that's how we're going to do this. I'm going to be discussing, for what I'm bringing to the table today, is this idea of at-home fitness during a pandemic. So, we're in some capacity, you've been impacted, during this past year, 2020. In the varying scales, people have been impacted, but one of them has just been primarily most people are confined to their home in some capacity, whether you live in an apartment, whether you live in kind of a community setting with other people, or whether you live by yourself, whatever that looks like, you're probably there more time than you've been there in the past. I think it's safe to say that as a majority. And I think people are asking this question: what does it look like then if I'm spending all my time here? And I just want to share a couple thoughts, like 4 different things that I think are really important, have been for me, and would love to. I know Grant, because we've talked about some of these things. Would love to hear how some of these things might have been impactful for you, or and then love to hear from anyone else some additional things. I know that my way, I'm continuing to tweak it, and I know that there's new information that I want to take on from a lot of you protagonists out there. So the first one that I want to just jump right into is sleep being the foundation of all things that are important. If you miss out on a couple nights of good sleep, like, you're just like out of whack. I know I am. Some people can operate on like a couple hours of sleep or varying levels. Sometimes they get 9 hours, sometimes 5, because they were working on a project late or went out or whatever. I cannot do that and feel confident the next day that I'm going to be functioning at optimal capacity. So for me, I know that a consistent rhythm where I'm getting sleep, where I'm shutting my phone off and putting it in the other room a couple hours leading up to when I'm going to bed, present with loved ones, and I'm just beginning to wind down for a good night's sleep. And then waking up really early. My wife and I have a daughter, so that kind of just happens by default. And if I want to have time to myself, I have to do that before she gets up at 6. So I'll get up around 5. And if I'm going to be getting up that early, I've got to shut it down earlier. So that's been something that's been really key for me during a pandemic. If you don't do that, the hours and time begins to kind of merge together. You stay up late, and then it just runs on into itself. I don't know if you guys have experienced that. I know I've experienced that, and I know that sleep is one of the key things that are really important. Another one is nutrition. I won't get super into this one because there's people who are just way more advanced in their understanding of this. But one thing that has been really cool that I'll just share as like a little bonus side thing is vitamins and supplements have been, I feel like, key for me during this time. So I just take, a bunch of different, like I take zinc, iron, fish oil. I take like a men's multivitamin, basically just like an energy one. Try and drink a kombucha each day. I take a vitamin D3, a vitamin B, like all these just like little things. But it comes out to like less than $50 a month to do those things, sometimes a little bit more depending on like which one you go with. In my view, there's no excuse not to invest in myself that in that way, and try and a supplement is, again, just that. It's supplemental. It's not your primary foundation. It's a way to fill in the cracks of what you might be missing in a diet, of your organic food and non-processed stuff and things like that. So that's just something that's been really helpful. Obviously, exercise. For me, it's been really key to throw in some stretches, some I guess, you could call it yoga or functional movement training type stuff when you first wake up. And that just kind of resets, your body. So if you're going to be sitting a lot of the day, at the very least, you're not just going to continue to do damage to yourself by tight hip flexors, core's not engaged, all that stuff that can, ultimately hurt you down the line. You didn't even realize when it happened, but it was just a bunch of days in a row of no good. The last thing that I would say, just in at-home fitness that's been really important for me is this idea of rest, not sleep. So I feel like we're on a lot of the times, if you like to rest watching TV or a movie or on your phone and things like that, that's cool. But in my view, there's no substitute for resting apart from those forms of entertainment, connecting with people if that's how you do that, or just going on a walk, just like resting, being with, by yourself and reading a book. Things like that have been really key. And I know that I've gotten to read more this past year than I have ever before. So that's something that kind of cool. Just those four things I think has been really cool for me to get to either take advantage of this time or make excuses and totally lose it. So that's my take on at-home fitness during the pandemic.
I love it. One thing I haven't spent a lot of time and I'm really interested in diving deeper into is the topic, the first one you mentioned, of sleep. And very on the broad level, I've heard about not only just getting the quantity of sleep, 8 hours, is kind of the arbitrary unit that's thrown out, but the quality of sleep. And so I'm curious if you know or could share anything about that regarding how to get higher quality sleep.
Dude, that's a great question. Again, I feel limited in my understanding, and it's kind of been like trial and error on this one. I can just say for me, if I take a short nap during the day, somewhere like in the middle of the day, if I can fit a 20-minute nap in, or like when you're in college, you take like a 5-minute nap or something, like you literally set your alarm for like 6 minutes of time. You spend like 33% of that, like setting your alarm. And so I just know that like taking a nap is one thing that actually for me helps me sleep better, I think, because sometimes I've found you can be so exhausted and you just pass out and you might end up waking up or you don't get that deep sleep. That's at least been my experience. Like if you've been on a long road trip and you felt yourself just like drift off because you're so tired, it kind of throws things out of whack and it's not a great quality of sleep in my view. So what I've found is when it's not hard, but you're going to sleep is actually not just like a 1 to 2 minutes, you're just out thing. It's kind of more of a rhythm. And then as you can kind of like drift into sleep, I think that your body's rhythms can find their optimal state a little bit better and more consistently, as opposed to just like, he's asleep, repair, do this ASAP, because we don't know when he's going to be getting up. Your body is a machine. It doesn't, intuitively know right and wrong. And here's what's going to happen next. It just goes off of these internal rhythms and habits that we create. And so I wonder if it's just a consistent thing. Like if you sleep 5 hours a night, cool, but make sure you're getting those 5 hours of sleep every night. If you take a nap, like whatever, I think that, I can't say enough just consistency over exactly what you said. Make sure you get 8 hours, or like you've been burning the candle on both ends, only getting a couple, like 5 hours here and there. You're like, I need one night of 8 hours of sleep. I don't think that that's how that works. You know what I mean? Like you can just throw stuff in the bank and then like use it later. Unfortunately, I don't believe that that's that's the key in my experience. And so I'd love anyone who's listening to this, to share resources that's been helpful for them. And I know that there are experts who focus in on this stuff and can share some keys with us, who are just kind of, like I said, trial and error, hearing some things here, trying to do what's best for my body, and then finding a consistent rhythm with, my spouse to work through that together. So, that's how I'd respond to that.
There's this book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, and it's subtitled Unlocking the Power of Sleep and Dreams. And this is one I've been meaning to read for a while. So this might be the inspiration I've been needing to finally crack it open, but it's endorsed by Bill Gates. So, it's
legit.
There's something fishy going on.
Right.
Hey,
supervillain's got to sleep. No, I'm kidding. Partially.
Dude, my topic along sort of similar, COVID related matters is, I'll just share as a context and background to where I've been at in the last couple of months. I've been living in an Airbnb for the last 3 months now in Austin. And it's made me realize the value of community, especially in a time where everyone is isolated, being told to, lock themselves into their homes, don't go out, talk to people, touch people, all that stuff. And it's been just in talking to so many people affecting everyone's psyche. We're such social creatures that Now more than ever, we're realizing how important that human connection is. And it's gotten me further interested in going down this rabbit hole of what a co-living community could look like, and how we can maybe transform this architecture that we've built up, or this framework that we've built up of separating ourselves out and kind of living in these massive homes by ourselves, one or two, three, maybe four people, and not ever really knowing our neighbors, not ever building up any sort of community. For the 99% of humanity's existence that we've been on this planet, the generations, thousands of generations that have come before us, we've been tribal species living in, units of 100, 150 people, and in intimately knowing all of those people very well. So I think this is honestly a kind of a very unnatural way of living that we're currently in, where we're in, most times, if you're in your 20s, you're in a single bedroom apartment, maybe a studio, some high rise downtown loft, and you're never really connecting with anyone. I think that's really screwing with a lot of people's heads. So I'm thinking through ways that we can create co-living communities, houses where there's more systems in place to encourage living and growing together with community. And so this Airbnb experience has been cool because I'm just literally renting out a room. There's 2 other rooms in the house, all of them being rented at various points in time. I've had like 7 or 8 roommates at this point. And so it's been a cool way to get to meet people. And I think that model can be replicated in various ways to really foster that human connection. So one thing related to that I'm looking into is how we can, one, create that system. Airbnb allows for that in a sense, but is there a different software platform that needs to be either invented or adjusted to allow for that kind of community? How do we, create that platform that's maybe like the Uber or the Airbnb version of a co-living environment? 2, how do we honestly lower the cost of housing to make it affordable for people to do this? Because housing is just getting exponentially more expensive, and we've had no major developments to the building of homes over the past 2 centuries. So I'm very scattered right here with a lot of the things I'm talking about. But there's this company actually in Austin called Icon, and they're basically doing 3D printed housing, and they're basically changing the way that homes are built by reducing the costs, making them more affordable, more sustainable, and more available. I'm actually just reading off their website right now. But I think by somehow combining the enhanced technology of 3D printing, bringing that over to housing, lowering the cost, making it more available, and then combining that with a platform that allows people to come together and connect in those communities. I think there's real potential there for a resurgence of community in America, honestly, because I think that's something that's been really lost and that we've really been feeling now more than ever with COVID. So that's my topic, my thoughts for the day.
Man, that's inspiring, encouraging, challenging. Question for you. Speak to the importance of what we'll call emotional intelligence, or the ability to problem solve within the context of relationships. Because I think that what you're describing, one of the primary reasons I can think of is this idea of if someone's toxic or makes you uncomfortable or doesn't like y'all don't vibe, cut them out of your life.
Yeah.
And ultimately you're left with only yourself and maybe your mom and dad, but you feel like you don't, owe anybody anything and things like that. So how important is it to be, well, maybe just call it emotionally intelligent, or be able to sustain healthy relationships?
Yeah. I mean, it's something, I think that skill is something that you're forced into developing and building and growing when you're living with other people. You have to be able to cooperate and work through problems instead of running away from them. I hear so many people, you've probably heard this a lot, where, people have roommates maybe in college, and then they finally get their first one bedroom apartment. They're like, oh my God, roommates are the worst. I'm never going back. And it's always weird because there is some satisfaction in having your own space and not having to really address or confront any of those problems that inevitably come with having roommates. But I think with the challenges, they they can be burdens, but they can be opportunities to grow as an individual, to basically sharpen your skill set as a human with emotional intelligence to overcome those instead of just running away into your little one bedroom 400 square foot huts where you never have to deal with those again, and that being the pinnacle of like human living potential. Like that just doesn't seem, the detriments or the negatives, the cons of maybe like having a dirty dish that your roommate didn't clean up the night before is not worth the community and the connection that you're missing out on. So those are my thoughts, if that answers your question at all.
I love it. And there's so many other trails I can see in my mind that those things can go that I'd love to discuss. We'll save those for future ProPods. How about that?
Love it.
Awesome, dude.